Welcome to Beyond the Pod, presented by SodaStick.com.
Brunette, he moves, Brunette back in, he scores! Minnesota has upset the Colorado Avalanche! Andrew Brunette, the game-winning goal!
Here are your hosts, the second greatest scorer in Gopher hockey history, Pat Micheletti, and the second greatest hockey analyst on this podcast, Brandon Mileski.
Hello and welcome to Beyond the Pod, brought to you by SodaStick.com. I'm Brandon Mileski, Pat Micheletti with me. How you doing, Pat?
Good, Brandon. How are you?
Good. I just realized we have an open in which there's a goal by Andrew Brunette in the 2003 playoffs, and our guest was on that team. He was on the ice. He wasn't on the ice at the time, but he was on the bench at the time. And Wes Walz, former Minnesota Wild player, now analyst for Bally Sports North, joins us. Wes, appreciate your time as always. I have a very difficult question to answer right out of the gate for you. It's probably a question you would need 5 to 10 minutes to think about, but I'm going to give you about 5 seconds to think about. If you were an NHL GM and all the GMs did a draft of all the lines in the NHL, how many lines would you pick before you drafted Kaprizov, Zuccarello, Hartman line?
Oof.
And then Pat, I'd like you to answer the question after Walz is done.
How many other lines in the National Hockey League?
Yeah, like where would you rank them?
Well, it depends how you're looking at it. I mean, if you're looking at on the offensive side, which you guys always are looking at the offensive side, I know that, especially Pat.
Yes.
I've got more of a defensive, way to look at games. I don't know. Actually, the line that's in Minnesota here, this Eck line, and I know some people might shake their head, but the Eck, Foligno, and Greenway line. If I was McKinnon and Rantanen and Pasternak and some of those guys, and I had to play a 7-game series, and I had to line up and look at Greenway, Foligno, and Eck for 7 games straight, that would not be a lot of fun. I'm telling you right now. I might have a little bit more fun looking across at Kaprizov, Hartman, and Zuccarello than I would looking at those other guys. And the fact that you're mentioning the Hartman line and the mentality that puts your team at, the fact that the Wild players got to sit on the bench and think themselves, I'm so glad I don't have to play against those 3 monsters every night. It goes a long way, man. It really, really does. But obviously the Hartman line and Zuccarello, they're and Kaprizov, they're next level. They've taken their game, especially in the last 2 weeks. And it's gone even to another level from what we've seen even 2-3 weeks. So just so much fun. Obviously, you guys are around the state of hockey all the time, in and out of hockey rinks too, man. I can't walk 10 feet without someone putting me in a verbal headlock, asking about the Minnesota Wild. It's so much fun.
Yeah, I agree. And when you look at it, right? I mean, your top lines are expected to score. The McKinnon, the Pasternaks, the McDavids, their lines are expected to be the engine, right? But I think Wes brings up a phenomenal point. I don't think there's a line in the league that wants to play 7 games against Eck and Foligno and Greenway. I think they're the identity of this team. Yes, they can change a game just by one shift, and get everybody on the bench, and then your superstars can go do their stuff, right? We know that. We know Kaprizov and Zuccarello, they're the playmakers. They're supposed to. But when you have a line that can, change a game, that's what we're looking for.
Yeah, and I think the key, I mean, you look at Billy G just signing Jordan Greenway. You've seen the growth in his game over the last couple of years. His game has been very, very consistent over the last 25 games.
Yep.
He was on the last year of his contract. So I'm going to be watching very, very closely with a kid now who's got a 3-year contract in his back pocket, because I'm telling you, the way Jordan Greenway's playing right now, I'm having this conversation with you right now and talking about the Eck line because of the way Jordan Greenway is playing.
Yeah.
If his game drops off and he turns and he regresses a little bit, then we got to talk about some other lines. This is all because we know what we're getting from Eriksson Ek. And Foligno are plug and plays. Jordan Greenway is It's taken a little bit more time, and everybody develops at a different pace.
Look at Eck. Look at Eck.
That's it. That's a perfect example. It takes guys a little bit more time to maybe understand, where they fit. And, like I said, Jordan, I mean, look at the goal last night against Chicago, like behind the net. Are you kidding me? Like it wasn't the fact that he bumped the guy off of the puck and used his body, but to control his edges and stay on his feet and then come up with that loose puck and then make a nice little pass over. I mean, there's not many players around the National Hockey League that can do that. And we've said this before, Jordan Greenway doesn't need to score goals to have a huge impact on what happens in games. And neither does that line. Yep. That line doesn't. We got enough guys that can put the puck in the net. You just look across at the best players in the world and 5-on-5, mano a mano, line on line, let's go. And we got other guys that can take care of and I know this from my own experience. When you defend the top players in the world and you're willing to play the right way, the way the Eck line is, you're going to get a lot of chances to score.
Wes, you know better than anybody that when people look at a player, right? They look at a player and they say, he's only got X amount of goals. He's only got X amount of assists. Boy, he's having a bad year. But you cannot look at Jordan Greenway and equate his play to points. You can't. No. Because that's, in real, just what you said, they've got the guys too.
Yeah.
They got the Fialas, the Hartmans, the Zuccarellos, Matt Boldy now. Even Matt Boldy. I mean, good God, 10-10, right? Awesome. But ultimately,
I think Jordan, Pat, even in his own mind, recognizes he doesn't need to put up numbers. And I think maybe he struggled with that a little bit earlier in his career, being a second-round pick. Again, this is about the maturity of growing into your game. It doesn't bother him if he doesn't score. He knows if I run 5 guys through the wall and I just hang on to pucks in the offensive zone, my GM's going to be happy, and I'm going to play 18 minutes a night. That's pretty simple.
Well, and Wes, I don't mean to keep harping on the Eriksson at Greenway thing, and obviously Foligno wasn't in the lineup last night, but I thought Chicago got off to a kind of a little decent start the first couple minutes of the game last night. And to me, the shift that changed everything was DeBrincat hit Dewar kind of shoulder, Josh area, and that was the second big hit he had early in the game. And the next shift, it's Greenway, Eriksson, Duhaime in the offensive zone, and they were railroading everybody. I mean, it was like 6 consecutive hits of every time Chicago touched the puck, they were going in full blast. And I just thought that completely changed. They didn't score a goal on the shift. It didn't make it a 1-0 lead, but just kind of the tone and everything you're kind of saying previously of the effect that has on your entire lineup. And hey, we're coming to play tonight. Yeah.
And I don't know if you guys have noticed this, but I would say the last 8 games straight during this stretch, I think maybe it was when Jordan come back from COVID or he was injured. I think he was the last piece. But when that Eck line got put back intact, there were a couple guys. I think it was Greenway. Dean Evison has started that line, start of games and the start of every period. That's 24 periods straight. It's not like mixing in the 4th line or we're going to go with a Hartman line, power against power. It's just like, here we are. This is who we are. And Eriksson Eck's face-off percentage, I was just happened to be looking at it, goofing around with some numbers here a couple of days ago. He's up in his last 7 or 8, 9 games have been at like around 65%. So that's why the last 8 games they're playing in the offensive zone, so much. So it's been fun to watch, and hopefully their game will continue to grow like the Wild's game overall.
All right, Pat mentioned Matt Boldy, 10 points in 10 games. He looks like a player to me. Obviously, the GM of the Wild said he's going to stay up for good. I want to know, trying to project, I know it's hard with a 20-year-old to project how high he can go because he's still very early on in his career. But do you look at Boldy as, hey, there's a top 6 guy? Do you think he's going to be a first-line player in his career? Do you think he's got superstar potential? What's Matt Boldy's ceiling?
Well, how many guys have had 10 points in their first 10 games in the NHL? So I think that's
only 5 in the last decade.
Yeah, I think that's all you need to know.
Yeah.
And if he was getting his points, half wall in the power play, moving it around, giving it to Spurgeon and Fiala blows a one-timer by, and he's got secondary assists, I would say, I don't know, but like of the 10 points, a lot of them are primary assists. His finishability around the net, like his hands, and Pat, you understand this, like how quick his hands are really around the net, are unmatched. And I watch his body language closely. I listen to what he says after games. I get the impression he's a very humble human. Like he doesn't, it's almost like he doesn't want to be there. Like I got to answer these questions. I just want to play hockey and have fun. He didn't get a chance to play with anybody like Kevin Fiala in the American Hockey League. Now all of a sudden he's getting up there and he's playing with Fiala and putting up amazing numbers. It's hard to say, Brandon. Who cares if he's going to be a top 6? He's going to be one game. The number 1 line is going to be the best line. Then the second line is going to. So if he looks to me like he's going to be a top 6 player, there's no question about that. He's willing to do all the little things. He's got a little Zuccarello to his game with how hard he plays in the tracking. He's got a little Kaprizov to his game, and because of his ability to spin away from guys in the corners, and I'm not calling him Kirill Kaprizov. Obviously, there's not many as dynamic as him in the world, and I don't want people to go, "Oh, you just called him Kirill Kaprizov." I see a lot of Zuccarello and Kaprizov in his game, and he comes to play every game. And I mentioned this during the broadcast, during the pre and post here the other day, like Boldy and Fiala and Gaudreau. You look at the teams around the NHL right now with the Kaprizov, Hartman, Zuccarello line. They're coming into games now on the road. They're going hard match. They ain't going just their top 3 defensive forwards. They're going their best 5 defensive players. Mm-hmm. That's opening up all kinds of ice for Fiala and Boldy. And I said this the last half of the season on the broadcast. Look for this line, the Fiala-Boldy line, to do a lot of their damage on the road. When they start, like the goal that Gaudreau scored the game winner the other night, that little play through the neutral zone, number 5 and 6 defensemen on the ice. I had to look them up to see how many goals, how many games this Jones kid had played for the Rangers. Like 16 games. And so they're going to be playing against guys like that. That's what separates very good teams from excellent teams, when you can take advantage of those matchups. And Dean Evason does an amazing job of managing the bench and taking advantage of those matchups when we do get them.
Okay, let's stay on on that line for a second, and first on Boldy. I don't know if you called his first game in Boston or not. I can't recall. Maybe you were there, maybe you weren't. I know you saw it. Regardless,
I wasn't there, but I was watching.
Okay, what sold me? I mean, you and I had talked, what do you think of Boldy, blah, 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 prior to that. When he made that backhand saucer pass, I think on one of his first shifts, I was like, there are not many in the league today that would have the balls to make that pass. So I think he's got that inner confidence that, I can make that play. And he did,
That's a great point. That is a great point.
Let's stay on that line. Mm-hmm. As we project forward and looking to the playoffs, right? And why would you make any changes now with the 9-0-1 in their last, blah, blah, blah. We don't know a month from now. But that being said, Dean Evason really seems to have a ton of confidence in Gaudreau as your second line center. What are your thoughts playing in the playoffs with a line like that? Or is it just, do we just have to wait and see, if there is a deal out there, or if there's a confidence level in this guy that he can get the job done, or what does Dean Evason want him to do on that line that makes him so confident that he's going to keep him there? Tough question.
Just for me, Freddie Gaudreau, just keep doing what you're doing. He's out there to clean up the mess, right? Whenever there's breakdowns, he doesn't cheat on the offensive side. I have been so impressed with his game. And the reason why, Pat, is because do you know how hard it is when you're a certain type of player, when you're playing with guys like Boldy and Fiala and everyone scoring, to stay disciplined and play the way your coach wants you to play, to make sure that we're not giving up any goals defensively.
It's hard.
We're not cheating on the offensive side. I want to put up numbers too.
Right.
But he has that discipline to do that. And, his game really here over the last 7 or 8 games has gone great. Like, I think he's been playing, better.
Yeah.
Don't think that isn't a coincidence, with Marco Rossi getting a chance to come up and play in the NHL. All of a sudden, when he went back to Des Moines, his game kind of went to another level. I don't know if you guys noticed that too. I feel that happened. But whether Billy's going to make a move or not, I can promise you, Billy is looking. He's looking around. He's got He's got lines in the water for sure. You know, if I'm Billy, I'm put my GM hat on. I'm not sure that I'm going to overpay. I ain't going to give you an extra first round pick for Miller or you know, the kid of Giroux out in Philly. I don't know. You're always going to be concerned about the chemistry in the locker room. Remember who our general manager is. Okay. He won 4 Stanley Cups. Yeah. He knows what it looks like and feels like. And to bring someone else into a locker room, first off, you better know who you're bringing in. Second of all, I think we can overcome a clown right now because we've got so much insulation, because Marcus Foligno ain't going to let you be a clown. You're going to be sitting over there in the corner. That's how, because we got a good thing going here. So the leadership group in the locker room has changed. So who you bring in is going to be very, very important. I don't know if Billy's going to overpay. Now, do we need a little bit of depth? For sure. Like maybe even a smaller move just in case somebody goes down and you need to fill in the playoffs. You know, something probably will still happen, but I'm sure Billy wants to make a splash, but I'm telling you, I don't think he's going to sell the farm. This team is just going too good right now to bring in someone in, you know, and I'm not saying he's not going to do it. If the price is right, Billy will do it. I'm positive of it. But he ain't going to give up an extra first-round pick because we got a chance to win right now when we've got a great team. And if there's a second-tier guy like another Freddie Gaudreau that might be out there to give us some balance, all of a sudden we get an injury in the playoffs and we're going against the Colorado Avalanche to keep our lines intact and keep our flow of our team looking the same way. I'm sure that's going to happen too. So that's why Billy gets the big bucks.
I was gonna ask you the chemistry aspect of that. I know I think a lot of Wild fans are still snake bitten from the Martin Hanzal trade. You know, and
so am I,
and how that all went about and the chemistry being thrown off. You know, with this team specifically, let's say they went out and got a center to put between Fiala and Boldy. From an internal chemistry standpoint, what kind of effect does it have now? You know, when you were the Wild, it's not like you were on a bunch of contenders, you know, that thought you could win the whole thing, you know, during the regular season. I apologize on the timeline of your career, but were you on the division winning team that had Gaborik and Dimitra on it? Were you
yes.
gone? Okay. So like that year, like what's the mentality of a locker room there where you think, hey, we got a pretty good team. Are you wanting an addition? Do you want to keep it the same way? How does the locker room feel about bringing in someone new in that situation?
Well, back in those days, Brandon, we wanted players in our locker room because we knew how close we were. To going to the next level. There were many times that we sat during the trade deadline those first 3-4 years where we just needed one centerman, a guy was a little bit better in the face, just anything, just one more thing. We never really got that a lot of times. It's different now. I mean, now we got a chance to make a run for a Stanley Cup. That's why, you know, it's a little bit different now. I feel like, I'm not sidestepping your question, Brandon, but I feel like we have the chemistry in the room to get a lot done right now. I promise you, Billy's looking. I haven't talked to Billy. I don't know what's going on out there, but I promise you, he'd be doing a disservice. There's lines in the water. He's communicating, but I would be shocked if he would overpay to bring in somebody that could, you know, give us a little bit of a boost. How much better is he going to be than Freddie Gaudreau? Like, is it worth giving up a first, second, and a prospect to go from Giroux from Freddie Gaudreau? How much better? Like, Giroux's 34 years old, right? Freddie Gaudreau's plus there's already a chemistry between these three guys. Now you move, you know, just playing devil's advocate and thinking about it. Now you move Freddie Gaudreau on the fourth line. Is he going to be as happy playing on the fourth line? Nico Sturm's off, maybe not playing. Now all of a sudden there's a little dynamic in the locker room that never was there. But there's lots to think about.
A lot of things.
And listen, we're doing a podcast here and spitballing, and I'm not spending a lot of time thinking about it. I promise you, Billy Guerin and his group have spent hours and hours thinking about what we're talking about here in 15, 20 minutes. So those decisions will not be taken lightly for sure.
All right, well, take away the center aspect of it then. Let's go to the goaltending position. What's your confidence level in Cam Talbot and or Kaapo Kähkönen? He's been playing pretty well over the last 10 games or so. And have their play over the last month or so kind of eliminated maybe a belief by some that they need to go out and get another goalie?
Well, I don't think I was alone. Like 4 weeks ago, guys, 4 weeks ago, that was the number one thing we're looking at. We're like, we got to, we need someone behind Cam. If Cam goes down, I mean, let's be honest. Capo was struggling with his game a little bit.
Right.
He nothing was coming clean. He wasn't catching pucks clean. He second, plays around the net. He was on his belly, like something was off. And we've seen him when he's on top of his game, how crisp and clean and athletic he looks. The one thing I love about Capo Cac, and I love about all players that really take their craft serious and want to really become better. Fans don't get to see this all the time, but I do, because I walk into practice early a lot and down at the Tria and morning skates at the XL Energy Center. If Capo's not playing, he's on the ice all the time working on his game. Yeah. He's out there with Freddie Chabot. They're working on their game. And I'm not a goaltender whisperer, but there was something for a long time that they were working on. And, it looked to me like a little bit it had to do with just spine angle, just being up a little, sitting. It's almost like I was watching it. It was almost like sitting tall, like sitting a little taller. And something changed. Maybe it was just a spine angle of 4, 5, 6 degrees that all of a sudden gets your hand just in a better position. It gets your weight your gravity a little bit more over the center of your body, which allows you to move right or left under more control. Just silly little things like that. And maybe it's only 1 or 2 things that can put a goalie's mind in exactly where it needs to be. And right now, his game and his mind looks like it really is where it needs to be. And look, I mean, the way he's played right now, internal competition, it's big. It's big, and it's a good problem to have. And right now, I know Dean Evison. You can just tell he has no problem right now putting Capo in at any point right now, the way he's playing, and that's going to be very important as we roll through this stretch, because Cam's 34 years old. He doesn't have the normal wear and tear as a 34-year-old, because he backed up so many years at the beginning of his career there with Lundqvist. So it's not crazy wear and tear, but he's still 34 years old, takes good care of himself. But there's going to be nights when he's going to need 2 or 3, 4 days off, and hopefully Capo can keep it going.
Yeah, I mean, ultimately, when it gets to the playoffs, this, Wes. I mean, your goalie needs to be the guy. I mean, he's got to steal it. He's got to steal a game. Whatever the case may be. If you don't get good goaltending in the playoffs, it doesn't matter.
We want to get by Colorado. We need a goalie to go in there and steal one. Right. And that's the one area, I know it's 3 months away, and I know you guys are doing the same thing I'm doing. You're thinking about playing Colorado 3 months from now in that series. We got to play a lot of games in between then.
Right.
There's this team called the St. Louis Blues that are pretty darn good too. They're not going to be easy to get through. I wouldn't be surprised if they make a move at the deadline. Their team reminds me a lot more of the Wild than obviously Colorado. But if there's one area, guys, that the Wild have the advantage in, and it could be on the offensive side against St. Louis, but against Colorado, I'll take our goalies 10 times out of 10 over Colorado now.
And really, Wes, our depth, because
100%.
You're looking at Eck and that, whoever they play against, but it's going to free up the other 2 lines, and now you have scoring on your top 2, and you know what, Foligno's got 17, Eck's got 13. Well,
if you listen, I mean, we're 3 months down the road. You play the Colorado Avalanche, and you figure out a way strategically to take them scoring off of the rush out of their game.
Yeah. Right.
Now you've leveled the playing field. Now it's advantage Wild. You got to take care of that part of the game.
You do. Yep.
That gets them so excited to play hockey.
Yes.
And if you can shut them down, they'll take some silly penalties. I've seen it a million times before. So there's some strategic things but that's so far down the road. And listen,
it really is.
Hey, don't forget, Brandon and Pat, don't forget, 4 weeks ago, we were 3 points out of the 9th playoff spot. We had a bunch of guys hurt, and the earth was falling. In today's world, you don't know what's around the corner, guys.
No, you don't.
Keep banking them away, man, because COVID, injuries, you just never know what's around the corner. And
they're going to have a lot of games in a short amount of time. So if you start getting the COVID bug, or you're getting some injuries, like you can.
Hey, Wes, I got to give you a compliment. Well, a guy that reminds me of you, who we may see up here again, and you saw him once earlier in the year, but I got to bring his name up because I was so impressed with him. You know how you watch a guy and he comes out on the ice shift after shift, and you just have that easy feeling because he's not going to make mistakes. Mason Shaw in Iowa and you saw him earlier in the year, I tell you what, I had the kid last week down in Iowa. You want to talk about every time he went out there, you knew the shift was going to end up good. And it reminded me a lot of the way you played.
Thanks. I appreciate that. He was probably a little, he's a farm boy from Western Canada, boy. So he's got a little bit more built-in hard to him. I was just a city boy from Calgary. That guy is wired tough. I can promise you that. So he made a good impression on the coaching staff. I had a chance to talk to Dean a little bit after Mason was up after his 3-4 games. And he's like, we have no problem playing this kid at all, because exactly what you said, Pat, because he's plug and play. He's gonna and he had a hat trick, didn't he? Just recently in the American Hockey League. He can finish around the net too. He ain't just slapping the puck around for 8 minutes and getting nothing done. I mean, he has a chance to. He made a couple plays when he was up too.
Yes,
he hit a post. He made a couple nice little plays with the puck. So again, these kids, man, they're not scared of the moment like we used to be. Like it's fun to watch.
You know, the guy who reminds me of you, Wes, is Connor McDavid, but apparently Pat has a different comparison there.
You mean you mean the second number on his jersey has a 7? Is that what you mean?
Final question for you, Wes. I read the article in The Athletic about your weekly hockey game you got going on in Justin Morneau's backyard with Morneau and Mauer and Leopold and Parrish and Paul Martin and all these guys. How fun is that for you guys to get back? And I know you guys have been playing, you guys play on Tuesdays as well indoors, but to be able to chirp and to be in the locker room, and how fun is it to play with those guys? And will you be streaming this soon? Because I'm ready to broadcast these games for you.
He wants to play.
No, I can't play with those guys.
If you told Justin that you wanted to streamline this, and he would build something beside his pole barn, like up high, so you wouldn't need a drone or something like that. He would do that, and like he'd have someone over there with a putting
I'll
up
broadcast the games. Let's do this.
Yeah, it's funny because we joke around.
I'm telling you.
Yeah, it's fun. And listen, like Mark Parrish lives 5 minutes from there. Dustin Bufflin lives 10, 15. He's got 20 acres of land out there. There's other guys live closer to Justin than I do out there. I live out here in Woodbury, so it's like a 20-minute flight to get out there. So it's not the easiest. It's not the easiest to get out there. And I was giving the baseball players a hard time. I said, you know what? We come out here and we play like this little 3-on-3 with you guys, the baseball players. Would the baseball players ever get together with us hockey guys and play like a wiffle ball game? Yeah. Would you guys take time out of your time in the middle of the day and come out and play? Let's play wiffle ball during the summer. Yeah. Or are you guys going to go, well, I got kid stuff going on. So all the hockey players, we just pile on out there and they have a good time. But those baseball guys like Joe and Justin and Hot Rod and the guys, Morris, and they're all just unbelievably funny guys. and we're just all old athletes just trying to have a good time. And Joe, I think Joe said it best during his article there. He just, he knows you don't have to worry about anybody getting hurt. I read a bit of that article and I was telling you guys before the article, like the way Russo portrays me, it's like I was stretching in the vehicle before the game and I was on a treadmill to make sure I wanted to be the best player on the ice. I promise you, if I was playing too fast, the guys would give me a hard time. But I get portrayed as that crazy guy. But we have so much fun out there. And it doesn't matter who wins, and it's about having a couple beers after and telling stories and just a great bunch of guys. Your
reputation has stuck with you throughout your career, but I've played against you multiple times. You play at 70% until you have to.
Okay, well, I'll give you that. All right, I'll give you that.
When you need to play 100, you'll play 100. Thank you, Wes. Appreciate your time as always.
Thanks, Wes.
Yeah, always fun, boys. Anytime. Thanks for having me.
Yep.
All right, Wes Walz, former Minnesota Wild center, also analyst for Bally Sports North. Before I chat with you, Pat, let's talk about SodaStick.com. Get your original Minnesota sports-inspired goods at SodaStick.com. If you haven't seen this stuff yet, you got to check it out. All of their apparel is screen printed here in Minnesota on super soft, super comfy shirts, and you'll love it. And we're going to hook you up with 15% off your next order. So use the code KFAN for 15% off. That is SodaStick.com, original Minnesota sports-inspired goods. Use the code KFAN for 15% off. Pat, I'm going to ask you a question that Kevin Fallness asked me last night on KFAN Wild Weekly.
Okay.
And with Greenway now locked in at 3 years, $9 million, he was kind of in that group of names with Fiala and Dumba of, well, eventually we're going to have to shed some salary here. He's a guy that could be gone. We'll talk about Greenway in a second and that deal, but assuming now that he's locked in for the next couple of years, and it seems like a pretty team-friendly deal, Fiala or Dumba, if one of them had to go next summer to shed salary, which one would you choose?
Well, when I look at the forward group that they have, as much as I really think you always want guys that want to be here. And Matt Dumba really, really wants to be here, I think. And I think he's let it be known. The problem is the $7 million cap hit that he'll incur next year. And they have a guy like Addison, and Addison is a lot like Dumba. And so if you're pointing a gun to my head, I'm probably going to say, you might have to move Dumba, because I think you're going to be able to get more for him than you will in Addison. And I really think Addison can play. I think he can play now. I think he could be in the lineup now, but unfortunately, there's no room for him right now. So if you're asking me, I would probably say Matt Dumba.
I'm with you now. No, I preface it by saying it would depend on how much money Kevin Fiala is going to want, right? I mean, if you take money out of the equation, which is hard to do in a salary cap world, I too would rather keep Fiala than Matt Dumba for the reasons you stated. That Kalen Addison, you kind of have your next in line to play in that role, and the Fiala types, the guys who can be kind of game changers, like those are harder to find necessarily than a Dumba. I think Dumba's more replaceable than Kevin Fiala. But for all we know, Pat, Kevin Fiala probably wanted to get paid last summer. Didn't. He has given you 3 really, really good years here. He deserves to get paid. He's in his prime. He's going to want a big contract. So depending on what his asking price is and what he feels like he is worth, if that money gets up too high to a certain point, if he's going to be making $6.5–7 million for the next X amount of years, I'd like to have Fiala here.
Yes.
If he thinks he's going
to get 8
million, 8.5, if he thinks he should be up in Kaprizov territory, then I'm not as eager to sign that deal with Fiala, and he would be the guy I would let go.
No, because it'd be a 5 or 6 year deal, and that would be too risky. If you can get him, at the $7 million, one of them is going to be making 7 or a little bit more, right? That's going to be the cap hit. And one of them is more than likely going to have to go unless you really, really went young. And that's why, Brandon, I'm glad you brought this up, because, if there was a year to go for it, that this is the year to go for it, because they're going to have those issues. They're going to have younger guys playing in their lineup, for the following 2 years until they get back to the cap reality. And the cap's not only going up $1 million. And so there's just not going to be a lot of money there.
Yeah, and I think let's talk about Greenway, because he signed a 3-year, $9 million contract. I think most people were happy with the deal. I saw a few that were like, "Why are we committing this amount of money to him for the next 3 years when we're going to be having troubles with the salary cap?" And I'm looking at that if he produces at the level he is right now, $3 million is a good deal. But I still think not that he's going to be a 30-goal scorer, Pat. But the 4 goals, 9 assists he had. Now I know he's been on a little bit of a streak here. So the last time I looked at his stats, he had 4 goals, 9 assists. He's going to increase from that. He's a guy who's going to be able to put in 15 goals a year. I think
so.
And one of these years he's going to reach 20. I think he has that capability in him. So I think you're not going to get the bad end of this deal. If he performs offensively this level, just because of defensively and the physicality that line brings as a unit, cohesive unit. He's been killing penalties a lot more this year. $3 million is more than reasonable. And Pat, let's say you needed to shed salary. That's a tradable contract now. There are other teams in the league that go, yeah, I'll take him for 3 years, $9 million. So if you need to get rid of money and don't think he's the answer here, the contract's not going to hold you back.
Right. And one guy who's probably not happy with that deal is Nico Sturm, because his contract is up and he's looking to get a raise, and I think he was thinking, what, I probably somewhere in that $3 million range. Well, guess what? He's not going to get that here. I mean, he's not, and whether he deserves it or not,
I don't know if he's worth $3 million yet. But.
Yeah, right. And so there's a guy that, I don't know what he makes now, $1.5 million, something like that. But he's probably thinking, oh man, this could be it here for me too. So, that gives you another reason why you go for it this year, because more than likely he's not going to be in your lineup next year either. And like it or not, he's a really good fourth line guy, and really adds something to that fourth line. But
but they've got other fourth line guys though. So
yeah,
like Dewar has shown me like he can play. Duhaime can play.
Yep. Oh, no doubt.
There might be guys in the minors, or you can also let's say Goudreau could be on your fourth line and you'd be fine.
Yeah.
And it's not difficult to find fourth liners also on the market.
No. Yeah.
At a relatively
very
cheap
true.
price. Yeah. What I find interesting, Pat, is really throughout the Parise, Suter era, and even the last couple of years, this has been a team that just has shuffled offensive lines and tried to find new connections, and let's play this guy with this guy. And I think we've now reached the point where our lines are our lines. Yeah, right.
Yes.
We even at the beginning of the year, they tried to move Eriksson Ek up to see how he would play with Kaprizov. And Eriksson Ek, Foligno, Greenway, that line's staying together for the foreseeable future, not just the next 2 weeks, like for the next 3 years.
No doubt.
Kaprizov and Zuccarello, they're playing together for the foreseeable future. And now, to me, it looks the way Boldy and Fiala are playing together, small sample size, but that line is staying together. So you're going to have consistent, for those that think, man, you can't shuffle the lines up because you don't have a chance to make chemistry, like you're going to get your wish, because these lines are going to stay this way for a long time.
Well, yeah. And look at Brandon, in a perfect world, I look back at Mikko Koivu's career, right? I mean, ideally, he never was a big point producer, and but when you're elevated to a number 1 or number 2 center, right, or top 6, you are expected to be a point producer. Period. Yep. End of story. And he went through his career not reaching that level, and that's why people always were complaining or this or that. But we never have what we have now. And guys are slotted, and guys are good enough to fulfill the roles that they're capable of fulfilling. And so I in a way, I kind of feel bad for Mikko, because, man, he would have been, on this team, Eriksson Ek type, and just a big difference in that.
Pat, I appreciate your time as always. We will talk to you next week on KFN Wild Weekly. I think we have Fan Line Tuesday night after.
I am out next week.
You're out next week.
I've got 4 TV games next week, so you're
out for Fan Line, but you'll be able to do it Beyond the Pod, or you out for Beyond the Pod?
We can probably do Beyond the Pod. I will be. Well, we'll talk.
We'll talk about off the air. We don't need
thanks.
We don't need to fill in everyone else.
No, we don't. Thank you.
Thanks, Pat. Appreciate it. He's Pat Micheletti. I'm Brandon Mileski. This has been another episode of Beyond the Pod, brought to you by SodaStick.com. Appreciate you watching or listening. You can watch on the KFN YouTube channel, or also listen on the iHeartRadio app or wherever you get your podcasts. And please hit the subscribe button so you don't miss any of our episodes. We'll talk to you next week right here on Beyond the Pod. Bye.